Well, it's probably the biggest game of the season for both sides, not only geographically, but with what's at stake both for Boro in the playoffs and Sunderland for automatic promotion. This probably is the biggest TEES derby for a long time. What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel and another episode of the Project Boro Preview Show, the series on the channel where we, of course, preview every single Boro game, and they don't get much bigger than this. Monday night on the telly, nighttime game, Boro at home to Sunderland in the TEES derby. Isn't a derby, might be a derby, depends on the outcome. Derby. And today we're going to be looking at both sides, looking at Sunderland, looking at where they're at, and of course previewing the game, my predictions, my predicted lineup, as amongst much more. Now, of course, it's a big game for Boro. I said this on the Boro Breakdown podcast last weekend. Just with Boro's season, how it's on a bit of a knife edge. We're not really consolidating playoffs. We're dragging ourselves into a scrap we really shouldn't be in. Everything feels on edge at the moment, and one big win could be the catalyst, but we're also one big defeat away from a ridiculous fallout, which, I mean, there's already people who are frustrated beyond belief at Carrick and the season and the inconsistency and the drop points and the individual errors and the bad home form. There's a number of things that have frustrated Boro fans this season, but quite honestly, a win against Sunderland at home could be the springboard. And if this is not the catalyst to hopefully that golden run of form that Boro have been crying out for, well, all season, arguably, then I don't know what will. Equally, Sunderland coming to Riverside, compounding our already very poor, disappointing, underwhelming home form this season, and just extending the gap between the two sides, I think could be a huge hammer blow just to the overall morale of Boro, the club, and the feeling around the place right now. So it's a big game, you know, both for Sunderland's automatic promotion hopes and Boro trying to consolidate a place in the playoffs. So there's a lot riding on this game for a number of different reasons, and it's a big one for both, I would say. But let's take a look at our neighbours. Let's take a look at Sunderland in a bit more detail. So, of course, Sunderland sit fourth in the Championship at the moment, been in that top four pretty much all season. And to be fair, as much as being a Boro fan, and I'll put my Boro hat to one side here, it's been a phenomenal season for Sunderland. They've done what Ipswich kind of did last season. It's very rare you see it nowadays where a team without parachute payments can cling on and hang and stick with teams who've come down with mighty financial backing, brilliant squads, who normally always pretty much lead the charge to getting back to the Premier League via the automatic promotion places. But Sunderland are the only team this season who have stuck with Leeds, Burnley and Sheffield United and maintained that very good standard, and for that they deserve immense credit. That plus Reggie Lebris has walked in and it's his first season and at this level, in this league, in this country. It just makes everyone else look around and say, how the hell's this guy walked in and done this? When, you know, we've had Carrick for 3 seasons, other clubs are going through what feels like projects and processes to build up to something like what Sunderland are doing, but they've just done it straight away. And I guess it's a culmination of a really good young side of young players who are all sort of progressing and peaking at the same time. So for me, I think Sunderland have they're riding the crest of a wave right now, and it is a wave, it is a tidal wave, but I do feel like there is an end point, and for me, I think this is Sunderland's golden opportunity to get promoted out of the Championship automatically. I still feel like they've got the foundations and the model and the recruitment to maintain being a playoff side, you know, for many seasons to come, a bit like Boro. But in terms of getting automatic promotion up against teams who come down from the Premier League, it's only getting tougher, the gap's only getting bigger. They seem to be riding a wave of momentum now, which will give them the best chance of getting there. If they don't get there this season, they might lose Rigg, they might lose Bellingham, they might lose Isidore, they could lose a number of really top players for a lot of money, but this could be that golden opportunity, a bit like what we had in 22-23. So I'm really impressed by them. You can't not be as a neutral, obviously, as a Boro fan, and I think I speak for a lot of other Boro fans. I think one of the reasons why we're as aggravated as we are with our season it's probably not helped by Sunderland being where they are. It doesn't help that they are Sunderland, and obviously there's animosity between both clubs, whether it's a derby or not, or just a rivalry. There's animosity there. Naturally, that's not an argument. But I think because Sunderland are doing what Boro should be doing, they're the team Boro should be, they're doing the things Boro should be, and they're in the position Boro should be, that's only, I think, making Boro fans more frustrated that we should be right alongside Sunderland. And I stand by that. We'll talk through the numbers, we'll preview it all. The data suggests there's nothing between the two sides, barring a few tiny crucial things that have swung it. And I think it's clear to see what the difference is. It's not that much, but Boro really should be a lot closer to Sunderland and be right there with them instead of fighting for sixth and scrapping with a bunch of teams that they shouldn't be. And I think that's making Boro's season even more frustrating than it already is. But anyway, as I mentioned, Sunderland sitting fourth in the Championship, 15 wins, 10 draws, 4 defeats, scoring 42 and conceding 24 with a plus 18 goal difference, and the form is pretty good. What I will say about Sunderland is they do draw quite a few games. They've drew nearly as many as Burnley, and we've seen how many 0-0s Burnley have had this season. So comparing the number of wins to Sheffield United and Leeds is definitely where the difference is at the moment between the two. So Sunderland might be a little aggrieved that they've drew too many games, but they've only lost 4, which is an incredible record. They seemingly pick up points, and when they can't win, they still come away with a draw. And in some cases, even in games where they're not at their best, they find a way to win. Again, characteristics this Boro side simply does not have. And because of that solid form, they have only lost 1 of their last 11 league games. But as I say, they've won 6, drew 5. So again, there's a lot of draws in there, but they're still ticking over. They're still picking up the points. In terms of them as an overall away league team, they are the 3rd best away team in the league. Of course, at home, they're ridiculous. They're one of only 2 sides to remain unbeaten at home in the Championship so far. I wouldn't say there's an outstanding away side in the Championship other than Burnley, to be honest, in terms of how many defeats to victories they've had. Maybe Sheffield United with 8 and 3, but Sunderland, like a lot of teams in the league, have sort of won as many games as they've lost. 6 wins, 5 draws, 4 defeats. So they're still a very good away team, but they're not an absolutely outstanding one, I would say. Only 5 points better off than Boro on the road, for example, and Boro have played 1 less away game than Sunderland, and we've lost 6 away games. So the standard of away teams this season is not that strong. I feel like home advantage has proved a huge part for team success this season, but still they're the 3rd best away side in the Championship at the moment. And out of the games they've lost, all 4 games that they've lost this season have, of course, come on the road. So they're beatable, I'd say, when travelling, and their record at the Riverside isn't the best. We'll get onto that at the end of the video, but still a very, very solid team, Sunderland. They're not a Leeds, they're not a spectacular side, but they're very efficient. I think that's what I'd say. They've got bits of flair, bits of magic, individuals who are absolutely amazing, but I think overall as a working machine, they just tick along really nicely, get the job done, and they're very, very solid and consistent, and that's why they are where they are. In terms of their numbers, that's sort of paired with their attacking numbers, and this is where we'll see the key similarities but also the key differences between us and Sunderland, because there's not that much to split us going forwards. They have the 5th best attack in the Championship, scoring 42 goals. Boro are just ahead with 47, so both 2 very high scoring teams. They're also 5th in the XG table in the Championship, again just behind Boro. Boro again are 3rd. The XG, there's 5 difference between the 2 sides. Sunderland have overperformed a little bit to their XG by around 3 goals, but again, 2 very creative sides, 2 sides that score a lot of goals. Boro are overperforming their XG ever so slightly, as are Sunderland, both by pretty much 3. So again, similarities are right there. And they're also pretty good elsewhere too. They're 3rd for shots on target, 5th for big chances, 5th for big chances missed. So again, they're not the top. They're not the top of anything when it comes to numbers, but they're 3rd, 2nd, 4th, 5th for everything. And that's what I mean about them being a very, very consistent side. They're not the best at anything, but they're also pretty good at everything. So that's why Sunderland are where they are, as I say. And defensively, this is where you will see the difference between us and them. So defensively, they're pretty good. In fact, they're very good. They've got the 4th best defence in the Championship, and you won't be surprised to see that the top 4 teams in the league have the best 4 defences. You've got Burnley, Leeds, Sheffield United, and then Sunderland, who've conceded 24 goals. And Boro are nowhere to be seen in that top 10. In fact, we have the 11th best defence in the Championship, despite, and this is the kicker, our XG against is identical. Both Boro and Sunderland have conceded the exact same number of expected goals against this season, which is an incredible stat. I couldn't believe it when I read it. Both our XG against are 29.4. So on paper, the chances we've gave up in games across the entire season so far, identical. Yet, Boro have conceded 12 more goals than Sunderland. That's incredible. So they're overperforming their XG against, by 5 goals. They've conceded 5 less goals than what they should with their data. Boro have conceded 7 more than what we should have compared to our data. So that differential is a joke. 12 goals difference conceded, yet the XG against is identical. And that tells me 2 things. Firstly, Boro are terrible at committing errors. With the top of the league in the Championship for goals, errors leading to goals for the opposition. And we've also got an awful save and goal prevention number as well. I think we've got the worst save percentage in the league. We're right down there at the bottom for goals prevented. Whereas Sunderland, they keep a lot of clean sheets. I think they're 4th in the Championship for clean sheets. And they typically stop chances, high quality chances, from going in the back of their net. That's the key. Both great sides, nothing to split them. They've both gave up the same amount of chances on paper, but Boro have conceded a hell of a lot more. And I think, as I say, it's down to some of the stupid things we've done in front of goal, passing out from the back, playing it out like we did against Preston at the weekend, but also having a much, much worse goalkeeper who barely saves a shot. So very, very interesting numbers there. Sunderland, solid at everything. Boro, you can see where we're letting ourselves down massively. Now, as for Sunderland setup, they play exactly the same formation as Boro in a 4-2-3-1, and they've just got stars across the park. Really, defence, they've got 2 very good fullbacks with Hume and Sirkin on either side. They've got Mepham and O'Nien and Dan Ballard in defence if needed. Dan Neil's in the middle with Chris Rigg potentially. He didn't even start at the weekend. He come off the bench, which shows the sort of depth they have. And then the front 3 in behind Isidore is ridiculous. Patrick Roberts on one side, we know how good he can be. Joby Bellingham, an absolute star at this level at 10. And of course, the big hype signing that was everywhere when they signed him, and I'm still yet to really get the hype, I'll be honest. But Enzo Lafie has been playing off the left, albeit I have heard from Sunderland fans that that's probably not his best position. He's not being utilised to his maximum off of the left, but I think it's still been effective enough so far. And Isidore is up front. They've got the likes of Mayenda to come in as well. They've just got a really young, exciting team full of talent and full of players that when they leave will absolutely, they'll get Sunderland an absolute fortune. They've, in a similar manner to Boro, bringing through players, making a lot of money off them, a very sustainable model. And I think Boro and Sunderland are on relatively the same trajectory when it comes to our squads and how we're dealing with the squads. They've got big assets, we've got big assets. So I can absolutely see what's happening there, and I can kind of relate to it as well. Now, in terms of how this 4-2-3-1 side will play, well, we saw it at the Stadium of Light, and it was to everyone's shock in a way, but I guess it sort of showed how predictable Boro were that day, because Sunderland, despite being at home in front of a packed house, sat off Boro. They sat off Boro, they let us have the ball, and it was a time in the season where a lot of teams were doing that. They knew that if Boro had the majority of the possession, we were unable to break down a low block, and we were unable to create chances. Not much has changed, in all honesty, but the fact that Sunderland that day were happy to sit off us, hit us on the break, that tells you exactly what their game plan was, and I expect them to do that just as well at the Riverside on Monday night. With being the away side, that's more of a natural thing to do anyway, but I honestly feel like Sunderland will be happy to let Boro have the ball at the Riverside, and they'll just try and catch us on the break because they are a killer on the transition. We saw it at the Stadium of Light. when you've got Roberts, Rigg, Bellingham running up the pitch, Isidore as well, who's a very pacey, athletic striker. Boro need to be very, very wary when we're getting counter-attacked on. If we lose possession, how quickly Sunderland will break on us and hit us on that transition. And one of Boro's weaknesses is defensive transitions, and it's one of Sunderland's strengths, attacking. So that could be where the game is won and lost. Boro need to ensure that when we have a lot of the possession, which I believe we will, we use it in the right way. In terms of their players and who they have, top goal scorers, etc., Isidore is the top goal scorer by far. He's got 9 goals this season, but they do share the load around below him, despite him having the most goals by a significant margin. You have got Rigg in there with 4, Mayenda, Bellingham and Mundle all with 4 as well. So despite him being the talisman, they do share the goals around quite a lot. And it's the same with the assists. Patrick Roberts leads the assist charts with 5 alongside Mayenda, but Hume, Bellingham, Neil, they also chip in with assists. So this Sunderland side have got goal contributions coming from absolutely everywhere, through the middle, down the sides and in midfield. So Boro need to try and win the midfield battle, but our fullbacks, which is a notable weakness of ours, have to be incredibly diligent when you've got Roberts on one side and Lafitte in the other. And can Boro's defence with Ravenfry deal with Isidore? I certainly hope so, but there's some very, very intriguing battles out there this week. As for the Boro lineup, this is quite an exciting one. I'm going to be honest. I'm so intrigued to see what Boro's lineup's going to look like. With hopefully all of our business near enough done, the only real question is up front, really. Now, I think the back 5 looks pretty decent. We've signed Mark Travers. He's a brilliant goalkeeper. I think he'll go straight in. I'd be shocked otherwise. Top goalkeeper. Delighted with his signing, and we'll have to do a separate video on that. The back 5 or the back 4, I think will be the predicted back 4 that I thought would happen at Preston. I think Ryan Giles will come in on the left. I think he'll be a key to breaking down teams at home down that left-hand side. So I think he'll start with Fry Rav. I think Ayling will come in again. I don't think Dykesdale will be fit. Hackney and Morris will always start, as I say, when fit. The midfield battle up against Neil and Samed or Rigg is going to be another really intriguing one. And then the front 4, which we need a bit more from. You know, we've not created as many high-quality chances in recent games as we were at once in the season. I think Doak will still terrorise. I think it's Dennis Sirkin that could be a key battle down the right-hand side. Finn Azaz needs to step up. His form's fallen off an absolute cliff at this moment. And I have stuck with Bergzorg because it would be unfair to drop him. He's been probably our best performer in recent games. And again, him up against Hume could be a key battle, with Giles doubling up down that left-hand side as well. And Marcus Forces, who I've gone with up front because we don't know the extent of Lath's groin injury. And I don't think Conway will be back and thrown straight back into the starting 11. People might be asking, what about Morgan Whittaker? Honestly, I think he'll be on the bench. I think it's the perfect game for him to come on and make an impact. And if he comes on and scores the winner, what a way to instantly make yourself a hero amongst Boro fans this season, you could say. So without knowing exactly where he fits in, I don't know if he'll start because I don't know where he'd start. I think, again, Bergzorg dropping out, it would be unfair. Would he come in for Azaz? No. I think you've got to play Whittaker and Azaz together. I don't think he'll drop Doak either. So for me, until I know where Whittaker's going to play, I don't feel comfortable dropping him into an 11 when I do think he'll be on the bench anyway. So some really key battles. It's going to be really exciting. 2 teams who I think aren't far off full strength. Very excited for this game. Finishing with the head-to-head and my predictions. And despite recent history being better for Sunderland, Boro still do have the edge over them in recent times. Since the Premier League season in 2016, Boro have 5 wins to Sunderland's 2, and there have been 2 draws in there as well. Sunderland's only 2 wins against Boro in recent memory were at the Stadium of Light. They're still yet to win at the Riverside. In fact, their last win at Boro came in the league in 2005. So it's not been a happy hunting ground for Sunderland at all, albeit they did come here and get a point last season in a 1-1 draw. So finishing then with my overall thoughts and predictions, I think it's going to be a very, very tight game. I don't think there'll be much between the 2 sides. I really don't. I wouldn't say both are on fire at the moment, although we're, I think, a little bit more out of form than what Sunderland are. But I do hope our home form can produce one of them special nights at the Riverside, because our home form has been pretty underwhelming this season. And as I say, Sunderland coming down, beating us at the Riverside would be incredibly damaging. So if there was ever a time to pull out a big home win, I hope it's now. You know, we have beat West Brom at the Riverside this season. We've drew to Burnley. We've beaten West Brom. We do seem to play better at the Riverside against the top sides when they come to town. It's the lower end sides who sit deep and defend that we struggle against. So that might be what alters Sunderland's game plan, but they got it spot on at the Stadium of Light. It wouldn't surprise me to see them do the same thing again. But I can't split either side. I really can't. I don't have the confidence in Boro right now to say we're going to win. But I also respect Sunderland massively and their strengths. But their record here isn't great. And they've also had a few shaky results and draws of late. And as I say, they do draw a lot of games. So call it a boring prediction, but I'm going to go down the middle. And I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw that doesn't really help either team. You know, Boro might be outside the playoffs by Monday. We probably need a win to get back in there. Sunderland, of course, need to just keep up that ridiculous standard that the top teams are setting, and they can't afford to drop points at all, if ever, really. You know, at the weekend they dropped points, and luckily everyone else did. But yeah, I think it'll be a 1-1 draw. I think both teams will cancel one another out, but I think it's going to be a great game as always. Hopefully a fiery one, hopefully one with lots of good football, a lot of great individual footballers showing what they can do. Fingers crossed we do win. I mean, if we do, as I say, it could kickstart hopefully a great run, and it could be the perfect result that we need right this moment, but don't quite feel confident enough that we'll do that just yet. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below, whether you're a Boro fan, Sunderland fan, neutral in the comments, your predicted lineup, your little preview of the game, and of course, most importantly, your predictions of what you think will happen. And if you've watched on YouTube right here, then do hit a like on the video, as it really supports the content and the channel. Subscribe if you want to see more. We preview and review every Boro game here on the channel, of course. And as well as leave me a comment in the section below. You will find in the description links to various podcast providers, because if you'd rather listen to these on the go, you can do by listening on Spotify, Apple, Google, etc. And if you do, give me a like, a rating, and a follow over there. That would be much appreciated. But I will be back a lot later next week. It'll probably be Tuesday by the time I get round to reviewing this game. So wait for that, and hopefully look forward to it. And hopefully look forward to a positive result for the Boro in the TEES. We a derby, not a derby. Might be a derby depending on the outcome. Derby. But until then, take care. I'll see you all in the next one.